This way, yeah.
All right, I got 7:32 and I'm gonna call this meeting to order. This, we'll start with attendance. Thought John, so he's here. Ellie? Stephen?
Yes.
Mark?
Here, because we're sharing the screen.
Sal?
Here.
Mike Reese?
Here.
Mike Sampson?
Here.
Karen? Yeah. And I am here. All right, great. So this is our noticed public hearing on the budget that we're putting forward. Before we get into discussing that, I think we sent out the minutes from last night's. Hopefully everybody got a copy and had a chance to look at them. Do we have any additions, corrections, errors, omissions?
Yeah, I got one. On Article 15, says to establish contingency fund, blah, 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 was recommended 8-1. We only had 8 here.
Oh, right.
I believe the vote was 6-1 and 1, that's what I have.
What article number was that?
Say 0,
15.
remember?
1, 2, 3, 4. I got 6-1 and abstain. 6, 1 and 1.
6-1-1?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Karen?
On the vote we had to take on the budget, and we took the $20,000 out of the, we re-voted on that,
Mhm.
and it says that there was only one negative, and that was Ellie. I thought I was in that too. I would
I have
think
two.
I could be.
I have 2 negatives.
2 negatives, okay, yeah.
I have a 6 and 2 vote.
So the minute said,
Yeah. What you're talking about is the motion we made later to change it. So that shouldn't be different, it should be the same as the original. 6-2 on the original Article 4, right?
And 6-2 on the,
And then we changed it later, we voted again, I
We voted?
probably didn't do 6-2 on the second.
it was 6-2.
It was 6-2.
I have 6-2 on both.
I have it on both as well in the
we
minutes.
vote on the budget when we changed it.
When we yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, that came into my mind, and
Okay. And I don't remember.
I remember.
We have to vote on the amount first,
Yeah,
and then we vote on the recommendations, and those could be different, and I think that's what happened.
Yeah. All right, we're all set with
all
that.
right. Any other changes? All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Ellie's gonna abstain. All right. And it's approved. All right, so we've put together this budget that I think, you know, it is what it is, and I don't think any of us are jumping for joy with this, but you know, the town had some needs this year, and everybody, we kind of spent the past 4 months working through it and listening to everybody, and so we're here tonight to go through it and to present what it is we're putting forward as the proposed budget. And so I guess, Karen, we'll start with you. You want to go through it, department, totals and, oh yeah, so, have to make a separate motion for that?
7:36.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to officially open the public hearing.
Move to open the public
All right,
hearing.
and second, all right, all those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed? All right, the public hearing is open.
So I'm supposed to read the bottom line amounts on each of these sections, correct?
That is
I could have
correct.
said somebody more experienced.
You don't have to read every single line.
No, just the bottom line.
Yep.
Right?
That's correct.
For the executive.
Yep.
The bottom line is $45,266.19. For the town administrator, salary, etc., is $167,292.21. For the town meeting moderator, the total is $2,803.34. And for the tax collector, town clerk, The bottom line is $132,536.30. And for the election costs for this year, the total is $70,550. Noting we have 4 elections in 2024,
Thank you, Karen.
so that's that.
There you go.
Finance department is $139,655.16. The budget committee is $4,000, $4,002.
Yeah.
No cents. The treasurer is $8,548.62. Trustee of the trust fund, $958.32. The town hall, which used to be called data processing, is $24,551.36. The assessor, $123,470.75.
John?
Okay. Legal, $99,800. Personnel administration, $1322.76. Planning board, $23,695.72. Government buildings, $146,956.59.
All right, thank you. All right, cemeteries, we've got $50,377.96. Property and liability insurance, $89,412. General government, $39,761.00. Police department, we have $1,062,323.04. Ambulance contract, $185,000. Fire department, $286,433.14. Building inspector, $24,839. Emergency management, $103,459.78.
Mechanic salary, excuse me, $238,696.31. Highway road agent salary, $86,802.49. Contracted services, $831,053.51. Winter sand, $595,001.00. And bridges payment, $21,600, and street lighting, $25,000.
Thank you.
Transfer station, $352,577.59. Health office, $2,693.25. Welfare, $74,102.32. Recreation slash King Street Lake, Goose Pond. And related expenses, $19,771. Library annual contribution, $196,898.28. Cultural other recreation, $2,000. Patriotic, $500. Conservation fund expenses, $1.
All right, so I've got debt service. $1. And capital outlay equipment, $1. And what is the IMP?
Improvement.
Improvements?
It might not be.
Yeah, I don't see that, so that, Yep.
I just copied over.
so that is not in. Okay,
Zero.
all right. Mike?
Okay. Excuse me, the budget for the sewer department is $128,860.38. And the budget for the water department is $162,005.72, for a total of $290,866.10.
Mhm. And we need to do, nobody's done the,
Library, he did library.
That's everything, isn't it?
except for the CMS.
That, we already did that.
Oh, right, this is. the-
Yeah, because it's like the library.
Yeah, okay.
I think, isn't that right, Mike? Yeah, it's kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
So it's like an in and out. This is just the itemization.
All right. So now, for the bottom line number, the total budget number is
General fund.
Should be 5246.
$5,246,713.99. And then, okay, Ellie? you
Yeah,
wanna-
I'm not sure what you want me to do first. If you want me to do the revenues, I thought that would be easier. But
Yeah, we can do the revenue first.
okay, yeah, let's do that. I don't have them in front of me, so can you put up the revenues, Terry Ann? Right. So we don't have these on a printout, but we have them on display here, so hopefully you can see them. This will go on the MS 737 along with the proposed budget. So, the important thing is for 2024, and again, this is just an estimate, and we, Carrie Ann has, done a conservative job in estimating the revenues, based on past years and being conservative. In other words, if we make an error, trying to underestimate rather than overestimate. So, but we won't know that until we set the tax rate, in November. So this is the bottom line right here? No, that's not right. You want the? Yeah, I need the bottom line. That's the only thing that really matters. It's 2 million something. All right, so this should be it, right?
Yes.
2,019,875 is what we're estimating for revenues. So the difference between, the proposed operating budget and that is what will be estimated that will need to raise from taxes, from property taxes. And you'll see that on the MS 737 when that gets filled out later. Okay. Does anybody have questions on that?
What was that number, total number?
2,019,875.
Yep. Thank you.
And it should be in our minutes too, so sadly, I somehow lost them between here and the back room, the back of the room, so. But that's what we voted on last night. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, great. All right, so Carrie Ann, can you put up the default budget, please? Over. What a hard down here. Let's see, it's still revenue. Opening in the next class. Okay. All right, so this is something that the selectmen are in charge of. So the default is what we adopt if the proposed budget fails. And it's primarily last year's budget with adjustments for other commitments like debt or contracts and that kind of thing. So I think it was 4,008,000 something.
Yep.
Are you on the bottom line? Yeah, that's all we need. Yeah, just the bottom line. And again, I don't have printouts on this, but you should be able to get a copy from Carrie Ann or Jack.
See that for you.
4804.
So we have all kinds of, other, it's basically all the same things, but with less detail. So general fund, total is $4,804,272.23. Okay? And, that will also be in the town report when that comes out, and all of this will be covered at deliberative section as well, so. So anybody have any questions on the default before we go through the warrant articles? Okay, all right, so Carrie Ann, they'll probably take a while. Can you upload there you go, awesome, all right, thanks. So there'll be other warrant articles that we don't weigh in on because they're not required. The only ones we weigh in on are things that have appropriation. So the planning board warrant articles always come first. Before that, the office of officers, and that's also always comes first. So the general fund appropriation, is Article 4. And again, we don't have printouts for this right now, so you'll just have, I'm not gonna read the whole thing. I'm just gonna tell you the amount and the purpose, and if you have questions, we can take it from there. So we pretty much already covered this. This is the general fund. So the proposed amount is $5,246,713.99. If it fails, the default would be $4,804,270.23. Okay, the Board of Selectmen recommends 3-0, but the committee recommends 6-2. Okay, so the next article, you gotta follow along here too. Is water and sewer. That's supposed to be, financed by the users, but we still have to approve it since it's a town-owned, enterprise fund. So the proposal in Article 5 is a total of $290,866.10. With $162,005.72 for water, $128,860.38 for sewer. And the selectmen recommend 3-0, the budget committee 7-1. All right, the next one is Article 6, which is an equipment lease. With a fiscal funding clause, which is sometimes called an escape clause. It's also sometimes called a non-appropriation clause. So the selectmen negotiated that so that it's not classified as debt. So we only need a majority vote on that to pass. So it's for 10 years, I think. No, sorry, 7. The 4 items: the grader, a backhoe, a 10-wheel dump truck, and a 1-ton pickup truck. So the first year's payment will be $169,599.44. And over the whole lease term, including the first lease payment, will be $1,187,196.08. So what it means is this escape clause means that if we don't budget for the lease payment, we can get out of it without any penalties, and the stuff goes back. And I don't know all the other details about it, but there are some other things included, I think, like maintenance and that kind of thing. So the selectmen recommend 3-0, the budget committee 5-3. All right, so those are the biggies. All right, Article 7, at least some of the biggies, is to appropriate additional highway, money for the highway to pay. There's already some money in the operating budget, but this would be over and above that. And this is $100,000. That's really not much. That's pretty self-explanatory, I think. And the selectmen recommend 3-0. The budget committee does not, with 4-4. Okay. Article 8 is the fire truck capital reserve. We've been putting away money in this, and this is, I'm not sure if the amount is directly from the CIP plan, but, the prices of equipment have increased astronomically, so we have to put away more than we have in the past in order to be able to save up and not have to borrow. So the proposal is 150,000 to go into this capital reserve fund that we've had since 1979, and the selectmen recommend zero, the budget committee 5 to 2.
Oh, yeah, that was the number in the CIP plan. Just so-
Was it? Okay, okay. Well, usually they don't like to put articles up if the CIP didn't go through it, but I didn't know if the amount,
There you go. Just
they don't always jive with the amount,
Yep.
so. But I just wanted to let people know that there is a process, a committee that goes through all of these things before they get to us. All right, so where are we now? Oh, so this is actually by the. Well, I lost my place here. So we went to reserve. So this is it. It's gonna take a while. So the fire department needs a rescue truck. And it takes quite a while for them to build it. But they won't build it until we commit with some money. So we need to put this warrant article ahead now, and it's 585,000 to come out of that capital reserve fund. And it says, yeah, it says 2 years. So, but we have to have the money ahead of time. All right, the selectmen recommend 3 to 0, the budget committee 8 to 0. Okay, Article 10, this is to put money into the highway equipment capital reserve, 200,000, again, to keep building that up. So that when we need it, we can have it. Again, this fund has been around since 1979. The selectmen recommend 3 to 0, the budget committee 7 to 1. Okay, Article 11, this is somewhat confusing to me, but it's appropriate, the transfer station has a special revenue account where it accumulates some of the revenue from recycling. I don't know how much that is right now, but evidently it's not enough. So the town is asking, the selectmen are asking to raise $7,500 to go into that fund from taxes to fund, it basically goes to fund capital items for the transfer station. So the selectmen recommend that 3 to 0, the budget committee does not, 4 to 4. The Article 12. There evidently was some oversight or mistakes, I don't know how to phrase it, but back in 2017, we voted to put money into a capital reserve account for buildings, for government buildings, but it wasn't set up properly. And so there's money sitting there that we can't touch unless this article or something along those lines is passed. So the money is there. We just need to go through the proper procedures to make sure that we can spend it. So that's what's not gonna have a tax impact. So that the selectmen recommend 3 to 0, budget committee 7 to 1. Okay, Article 13,
Ellie, can you read off the dollar amount of that?
there's none. Oh, wait a minute, sorry. Oh, so that's the amount that's should be in there now is $276,276.68. But it's already there. We just need to transfer it into the right pocket. So it's an appropriation. It just doesn't have a tax impact.
I have a question, Ellie.
Sure.
Okay. This is a point I think that one of you guys raised is that money is going to accumulate interest between now and the time we actually do this.
It is.
So should we have that specific dollar amount? Or should we say that amount plus any accumulated interest?
I think the next to the last.
Does it?
Yeah, go back.
Oh, I'm
As
sorry.
well as any interest that may have.
Thank you. Okay, great. Sorry. Thank you.
And just
I
to
didn't read
be,
it.
just to clarify something
Yeah,
that,
it does say that, yeah.
that Ellie said, we're not creating a new account. We're
Right.
gonna stay in the capital reserve. All we're doing is
Yeah.
going through the ratification process that we should have gone through in 2016, 2017. Nothing changes, money doesn't move, it's not a new account. It's gonna stay where the voters put it.
Yeah.
It just allows you to clean up a technical,
Yeah.
formative, technical process.
Yeah, and it does say that, it says as well as against that we have approved to said sign. So it's on there, Sal.
Thank you. My bad.
So it's a good catch though, but good thing to remind people of that. Yeah, because that's another good reason to use capital reserve accounts is because you get interest instead of paying it when you borrow. Okay, all right, so let's go on. Article 13 is capital reserves, for library repair, and this is $187,000 total. With half, 93,500 to come from the buildings, capital reserve fund, and the other half, 93,500 to come from taxes. So the selectmen recommend this 2-1, the budget committee means 5-1. And it doesn't look like that total.
One abstention.
No, it just,
Two abstentions.
it's total 8 people and only total 6.
Two
Oh, 6, 1, and 1.
I got 611.
Yeah,
Let me-
6, 1, and 1.
Yes, I have 6, 1, and 1.
Yeah, I had 611 as well.
Yeah, so that should say 6,
Okay.
6.
I have
no,
5,
one,
1, and 2
and
abstentions.
an abstention, one abstention and one.
I've got 5, 1, and 2 abstentions.
6, 1, and, well, there was an abstention and then somebody changed their mind.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
Karen,
I had 2 extensions crossed off at a 1. I had
Okay,
6
so
1.
I'm sorry, I didn't cross that out.
Ellie was a
I abstained.
no, and you were an abstention.
I was a no and she was an abstention, so, yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
it was no.
Okay.
So we're good with 6, 1, 1?
Yeah, 611.
Okay, well, that's awesome, because we can change it right here. All right. All right, cool, thanks, Sherry. 6, 1, and 1, do you want to, should we have her put the abstention in there too, or does that not matter?
No, it should be listed. I
Yeah.
thought it was.
Yeah, Carrie Ann, could you put the abstention in there too, please?
And there's been, yes.
Oh, there it is, sorry, yeah,
One
okay,
abstention.
all right, I didn't do that part, thank you. Okay, great. Article 14, this is for capital reserves, for the ambulance purchase. Oh, I see, because she wrote it out, okay. So this is $232,706 to buy a new ambulance, with some of the funds coming from their capital reserve account, $50,536.98. And the rest is, they have a revolving fund, $182,349.02. So the assumption is that it shouldn't be a tax impact because they already have their own money, like water and sewer. It's similar to an enterprise fund. So the selectmen recommend 3-0 and budget committee 7-0 with 1 abstention. Okay. And Article 15 is for $1,000 to establish a contingency fund. This is something new that I don't really understand what it is. I guess it's just in case, it's just a buffer, I guess. In case we have to overspend the budget. The selectmen recommend 3-0 in the budget committee, 6-1 with 1 abstention. Oh, I made a spelling boo-boo. Is that why there's a little red line under it?
Ellie, did you say $1? It's actually $1,000.
No, I meant to say 1,000. It should be 1,000, yeah. And it's somewhere. I don't know why it's saying passage is wrong. It looks right to me. All right, so, okay, so it's $1,000 for that fund. Article 16, this is the police union contract. I haven't read it, and I don't not sure where it is, but, basically, they're not asking for anything much different than what they usually do. The only thing I see that's different is the retention, bonus, of 1.5%. There's not. I'm looking for a dollar amount, and I don't see one. Did we have a dollar amount on that?
We did $1,244 and pennies.
Okay, I don't see it. Well, what is it, 12,000?
1,200.
1,200.
They want.
And how much, how many cents?
1,244.
Oh, 1244, okay.
I put it on the
And that,
We don't have it in the actual warrant, do we? I mean, the one that I have.
Yeah.
The percentage.
oh, it's usually there's a
percentage.
dollar, there's usually a dollar now.
Suggested that we add the amount to the article.
calculated an approximate $3,854.03 for that warrant article.
For the entire term of years.
Right.
But what's the first year in 2024?
Yeah.
1244 and change.
I don't have that with me. I don't know. You need it.
It's 1244, I just don't know the pennies.
Yeah, well, that's because I can't figure out how you, if you have a tax rate impact without a dollar amount, you know what I mean? Which doesn't make any sense. So, I don't know, I guess that might need to be adjusted. So the $1,244 will be the first, for the first year of the contract, which starts, what, is it April 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we do this every 3 years, so. So this one, the selectmen recommended 3-0, the budget committee 6-0 with 2 abstentions. All right, 17, Article 17. There are several capital reserve funds that haven't been used, and so they're asking for these to be discontinued and to have the money put into the buildings fund, the capital reserve buildings fund. So there's 6 of them, the firehouse, 279.81, the highway garage, 16,973.95. Landfill closure, 83 cents, library renovation, $347.01, road construction maintenance, $8,897.30, and town office renovation, $559.93. The Board of Selectmen recommends 3-0. The Budget Committee, yes, 7-1. All right. And again, that's just moving the money from one place to another, so no tax impact on that. Article 18 is to discontinue a road that doesn't require any appropriation, so we didn't vote on that. Article 19 is equipment for the transfer station to be paid out of, I think, out of this special revenue account for $20,000. And since it comes out of a revenue account that already has money in it, it's not expected to have a tax impact. So the selectmen recommend 3-0, the budget committee 7-1. Okay, Article 20 is money to go into revaluation. That's for your to revalue all the town properties. We have a contract where we do so much of the town every year, and in order to make sure that we can budget for this, we put in something usually every year. This year, they're asking for $15,000 for that. Oh, just as a reminder, this one, if I remember correctly, Jack, the selectmen are the agents to expend on this one, right?
Correct.
That's correct. Most of the rest of them, the other ones, like the buildings and the equipment and all that, the voters are the agents, and that's why we have to ask to take it out. So you see a warrant article asking to take this out because the selectmen can do that on their own. So this is 15,000, and the selectmen recommend 3-0, the budget committee 8-0. Let's see. So Article 21 is capital reserve for bridges, and again, this is another one I think that the selectmen are the agents to expend. Correct, Jack?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So what we've been trying to do, and again, I think this goes through the CIP, is they want to put $40,000 into that fund. And the reason why we like to do it this way is because the state matches a lot of our bridge projects, and you don't always know when they're going to be ready. And so if we have money in the fund, we can usually take advantage of, the state's, generosity, quicker if we have the money all set aside. So they're asking for 40,000 and the selectmen recommend 3-0, budget committee 8-0. And again, the selectmen can take it out, they don't have to come to us. All right, so this is Article 22, so this is more money to go into the government buildings, capital reserve for 23,000. The selectmen recommend 2-1, the budget committee 7-1. All right, all the rest of them are petitioned articles. Let's see. 23 is for West Central Behavioral Health for $4,590. Selectmen recommend 2-1. Budget committee 4-2 with 2 abstentions. Article 24 is Grafton County Senior Citizens Council. 158,000. Oops, I'm sorry, reading the wrong amount. 13,500. Selectmen recommend 3-0. Budget committee 5-1 with 2 abstentions. All right, Article 25, Public Health Council. 2,910. Yeah, oh, there we go. The Board of Selectmen recommend 2-1. Budget committee 5-1 with 2 abstentions. All right, Mascoma Community Health Care Center. This is for $10,000. The selectmen do not recommend.
Select,
1 yes, 2 no. Budget committee does not recommend. 3 yes, 3 no, 2 abstentions. Okay, Article 27, Tri-County Community Action. $7,588. The selectmen recommend 3-0. The budget committee recommends 5-1 with 2 abstentions. Okay, Weiss, $2,100. The selectmen recommend 3-0. The budget committee recommends 5-1 with 2 abstentions. And the last one is Advanced Transit, $10,135. Selectmen recommend 2-1. The budget committee 5-1 with 2 abstentions.
Yeah, did we change the,
Thank you, Ellen.
the Board of Selectmen, I'm 2-1 on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that too.
Yeah, me too.
Let's see, which one is it?
On the Mascoma one?
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
it should be
What?
26. We want
Can you go back
It
here?
should be 1-2, 1 yay and 2.
One yes, 2
So that's it, okay,
Um,
so you have to make that change.
1 year, no. All right, so we need to talk about them. Okay. So was there, did we just make an incorrect,
Yeah, the
entry here, or did we go?
minute
to-
taker transposed the words,
Oh, okay, so it's yes 1
the no came
and no 2,
first,
so it should be no.
not that minute taker.
Not that, not Roger. No, 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 no. Not Roger.
You can look at the POS.
All right, thanks, Roger. All right, so we got one more warrant article, but we don't, it doesn't require an appropriation, so we don't vote on that. And then, do you want to go over the water and sewer stuff, Jack, or do you not want to bother with that?
Since it's not gonna be the subject of this town meeting, I wouldn't,
Okay,
we wouldn't take time on it.
all
We're
right,
gonna be discussing that in an informal, informational way at select board meetings in the months coming forward, so
all right.
we'll handle it then.
Yeah, so just a heads up if there's gonna be a water and sewer thing coming up.
Water.
Oh, just water, okay. But we don't have to take care of that, at town meeting,
We,
so.
we
we'll wait.
generally have just because we raised it, we generally have a $1.47 million earmark appropriation. And in order to actually receive the funds and do the work, we have to do a little more preparatory work in order to be able to actually receive it. We also have a $780,000 state grant. Again, for some of the water work, but we have to do some preparatory design and work in order to actually be able to receive and spend. And we're not ready to do that yet. So when we get ripe to actually ask for the money and do the projects, we'll have a special town meeting to authorize that borrowing.
So do you think there's anything else we're gonna need to do, Jack? Should we close the hearing or not?
Could leave it open.
It's up to you.
Go on, leave it
We
open?
could leave it open and then after the deliberative session, we could close it up, I
All right,
suppose.
okay, so we'll leave it
Does
open.
everybody want to do that in case we? Yes.
Okay.
We recess, well, unless there are other comments.
Yeah, does anybody from the public or out there have any comments or questions? Tom?
I just, I wasn't here for all of the votes or maybe any. I'm just curious, there were an awful lot of abstentions. Were they mainly the conflicts or lack of, I mean, what's the? I'm just curious.
I can speak for myself. I abstain
And I did too, for the same reason.
so I fundamentally opposed to the budget committee and the select board making any recommendations on petitioned warrant articles. I just disagree with it. I think it's let it up to the voters. They don't need to hear from us. These were petitions. People went out, did it. And people can make their decisions. So because of that, I just abstained from those votes.
So, but that was just on the petition.
Yep.
Seemed, am I wrong? It seemed like there were a number of abstentions on the non-petition. And I mean, your rationale makes perfect sense. I'm just curious about some of the.
The other ones, I can only speak for myself that on the police contract, I abstained because I haven't seen it. I don't know anything about it, so I just abstained from it.
Me too.
There are individual reasons for all of those.
But most of the ones I did was, I didn't like the wording of the warrant article, but I wasn't opposed to the purpose.
Yeah.
And some of them was because I didn't feel I had enough information to decide. So, but I didn't want to vote against it, so,
Okay.
Yep.
It seemed like a lot.
yeah. Well, we have to vote our conscience and we have to sign the thing, so you have to do,
Questioning the vote.
right. You just have to do, I mean, there was a couple of people that were a little conflicted and that's basically what we told everybody was that you need to vote your conscience. And whatever you feel comfortable with is the best route to follow. So in some cases it was, I think most people, it was, they didn't have enough information. Except for the petitioner. Makes sense.
Dan?
So. Once again, if the average of one person voted against accessing the fund, when on access to it.
I guess you're talking about me, Dan, aren't you? It usually is.
Well, if that's the case, then maybe.
I was the only
So
one.
I guess and you don't have to answer me if you don't feel comfortable, but that's my question, is why do we not want to have access to those?
I'd be happy to tell you why.
Okay.
Is because we have all kinds of money. That we should be using. We also have other assets that we could sell that we're not. We have 2 gravel pits that we're not using. And this is also why I voted against the highway stuff. I'm not in favor of long-term debt of any kind. We've sold property that was supposed to be worth more than we sold it for. I know you want to do a what do you call it, community center. But I think we have other priorities right now. And I think the money that we got from the Cozy Corner, we should have put into that bill. It's not so much that I'm against the building, there's certain buildings. We have all kinds of buildings that we can't take care of. And the library to me is the #1 priority. So if you want to make a building fund, or whatever you want to call it, you already have one for the library. And I was going through some warrant articles today from previous years. And I think I also voted against closing on Article 17. I voted against that one for the same reason, because there's a library fund there already. So if you want to write me a warrant article that says we want to have a library building fund, I would gladly take that money and put it in there. And then you can paint the library.
Right. But we understand we're not asking to appropriate those funds, they're already there and we can't access them, so
Yeah, I know.
our tax dollars are already in this account.
Yeah, but you can spend it on any building, not the library,
Understood,
okay?
Yeah.
So if you tell me you want to put that money in a library fund, I'll vote for it,
understood.
okay?
Thank you. Yep, again.
Mike?
And then we'll worry about the other stuff.
Cindy talked to me a few days ago. And I think, this is a recommendation to the board of selectmen, is to change the language on the ratification of the government buildings to identify which buildings. Right now, I could do an outhouse. And I would suggest looking at the list that's in the CIP program. Some of them are moot issues these days, like Cozy Point. But there's 11 other ones that include the fire station, police station, highway garage, transfer station. It does not include water and sewer. It does include the meeting house, it does include the bathhouse, so all the buildings are listed in CIP. So my recommendation to the board is to consider listing the buildings that are covered. The problem is, if you don't list it, you got another building and you need to use it, it's not in there. The advantage is the trustees of trust funds really don't have a clear list of what is a government building. The other way you could go is to like any government building with appraised value greater than $100,000, that might be, or anything along those lines, but there is no specificity of what buildings. And it also doesn't specify whether it's for repairs or replacement, or just replacement.
Actually, it does.
Does?
Yeah,
It's
construction,
specified,
reconstruction, repair, maintenance, improvement, or replacement of any buildings, structure under the ownership or the control of the town.
So that could be even minor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I did look up,
My sense from 8 years ago was it was intended to be
It
broad
was,
to cover
but I
a lot of
don't,
stuff.
I'm just,
Yeah,
Cindy can speak to it better than I can, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
because
The
yeah.
fellow wasn't specific enough. On the other hand, theoretically, it's worked, but it hasn't worked, we've never used it.
Yeah, I found reference to this library renovation fund in a previous, I should have brought it with me, but I just had too much stuff carrying, so it didn't. But there was mention in, I think it was either 2016 or 2017 town report about this library renovation fund, and they said something to the effect that they wanted to have money in that fund for repairs and maintenance and not just renovation. So that warrant article gave me the indication that the purpose of the fund was changing. And so I'll have to see if I can find the warrant article and send it to you. Because I don't know how you establish the purpose. If it's in the warrant article has to define the purpose. Okay, so if the warrant article says you can use that library fund for maintenance and repairs, that's why I voted against that warrant article, because I don't want to close that account. Because we already have a fund
right. Well,
dedicated to the library. So why close it and then open another one?
but that's not what we're doing, not closing any account.
In Article 17 says discontinue. Unused and inactive
Like
fund,
$300 in it?
That listed there.
347. Yeah, but I mean, it's paperwork and time consuming to set up a fund. So if it's something you think you're gonna use in the future, why close it?
I guess the reason is that nobody's touched it for years.
But you wanna put stuff, you wanna do stuff to the library, why don't you put money in it? If you wanna, maintain the library, put money in it.
It's a question for the voters. I didn't establish this and
I know, but somebody writes the, and we don't write the warrant articles either, the budget,
Well,
committee doesn't write the warrant articles, so how can, we can't do anything other than vote yes or no.
Well, I can't speak to the purpose for which any of these capital reserve funds were formed a decade ago or more. We're not trying to change the substance or the purpose of the government buildings capital reserve. We're just trying to go through the admission door correctly to create it. So without any intention to change whatever the voters were told 8 years ago. And the years since, I don't know what anybody was told as to what the government buildings capital reserve fund was going to be for. So if you change it now, I don't want to euchre anybody by thinking, wait a minute, we put money into the government buildings capital reserve fund years ago, now you're changing the purpose.
So.
That's not my intent.
I looked up the budget committee minutes from January of 2017. And there were 4 warrant articles that the budget committee did not vote on.
Okay.
Because there was some issue with DRA. But I couldn't tell, I don't remember it. I was the chairman, but I don't remember anything about it. All I could go by was the minutes, and I think Roger must have taken it, and I don't imagine that he would remember either. But we voted, I should have written them down. There was 4 of them, and one of them was that government buildings capital reserve. And there were other things like fire trucks or whatever. So if you look back, those are all posted on the town website, those minutes. The first 2 meetings in 2017, the 2 January meetings, we voted on it during the public hearing. Those 4 warrant articles. So there was evidently, DRA had an issue with that warrant article to begin with. But I don't know what it was.
Mike?
A couple of clarifications. First of all, that particular article, the money was originally going to come from the general fund and go into government buildings. So they rejected, they said you can't
Oh,
appropriate money to a capital reserve account from a general fund. So that was the issue on that. It was in 2000, actually, this whole conversation started in 15, 16, and 17. And there was a decision to include all government buildings on purpose because the CIP committee was supposed to go through and evaluate which were the neediest, whatever, as part of that process. So it was a fairly broad-based process to evaluate buildings. So while you may love the library and I love the library, the fact was that there was a CIP process that people were supposed to evaluate the needs. And there were other buildings that were in need and still are in need. So, and that meant that usually what happened was that there would be a consideration of allocating so many funds to this building, so many funds to that building. So that was all part of the history, and that was over a 3-year period of 15, 16, or 17.
And that makes sense, because then when you want to take money out of it for a specific building, you get the voters' permission, whether they have an interest in spending that general broadly defined reserve fund for this specific building. So the filter over voter intent is when the money is coming out, but it's a perfectly logical concept to make a big fund for all buildings that are owned by the town. And then when the money is on the way out, the voters get to decide whether they want to fix that particular building. Save that money for some other purpose. So the specificity of the withdrawal is what matters. But it's a big savings account for any building that the town owns. So I like Mike's explanation, makes perfect sense.
Any other questions or comments on the budget or anything else? Maybe not continuing this discussion. Okay, yep.
I handed out a sheet that I prepared, and been working on it pretty much nonstop since September. And it does not come from the selectmen, but it comes from Carrie Ann, came from me. And it's a single sheet that says what the total appropriation is, not including the petition, not including water and sewer, not including emergency management. It's about $6 million, and that tracks with everything Carrie Ann is handing out. It also shows what the anticipated revenue is. This is non-tax revenues. It tracks with what Carrie Ann says. So you start with $6 million that's appropriated. If all this passes, it'd be $6 million. The anticipated revenue, and that could change between now and next year, is $3 million roughly. The third one then is how much has to be raised by taxes, again, subject to whatever the revenues are that are anticipated. That right now, it looks like it has to be $4 million raised by taxes. It shows what happens when you divide that amount by the tax base that is in place right now, which is 456 million. And it comes out with a tax rate of $8.82 versus $6.56 currently. So this is what I historically used to use in order to estimate what it's going to be. Ordinarily, there would be an assumption as well that the tax base may go up. And over the last 15 years, it's gone up 1 to 2% a year. It goes up more when there's a fifth year revaluation, but other than that, it's just because of inflation. It's usually, our new buildings, it's usually 1 to 2%. I did not factor that in. And then the bottom line is, it's a rate increase of $2.26, a 34% increase. Purely for information purposes on the top part. The bottom part is all about fund balance retention or unassigned fund balance. I quoted from the DRA records. These are guidelines. They are not mandatory. That's number one. Their recommendations, that's number two. And I know Carrie Ann's working on the total number, but the number that was available in November was $587,465. It's on the DRA sheet when the tax rate was set. And then if you look at Carrie Ann's numbers, which is what I use for revenue and expenses for year end, not counting encumbrances, and I don't know what they are, but I know Carrie Ann's working on it. But I estimated between another 500 and 600,000 is going to go into that unassigned fund balance or into the unassigned fund balance, which would bring it between $1 million and $1.2 million. And reason I say that is because this proposed budget has no support from the unassigned fund balance at all for a huge increase in capital reserves and capital expense. And I don't agree with that. I think that you could reasonably have a remaining amount in forbearance, that you're holding for security, like 600,000, and still put 400,000 into support of those capital reserves. If you did that, that proposed increase of 34% drops about 12%. And I would strongly recommend that the board think about that. We don't have any say at all as a budget committee that I'm aware to do that. It's entirely up to the board of selectmen. But I think since September, there's been a number of conversations about no unassigned fund balance. And it's there. Part of the reason, by the way, is when the tax rate was set this year, an extra $245,416 was raised in taxes for a quote overlay. Which meant, and that's not approved by the voters, that's approved by the selectmen. So that was put into that account. So if that hadn't happened, it would have been somewhere around $850,000 in the unassigned fund balance. The long and short of it is, I believe there's over $1 million. I think that it would not be unreasonable to take at least 300,000 of that, or 400,000 of that, and apply it against a rather massive increase in the capital items.
Karen?
Also, I've felt that way all along as well, and I have a question about an unassigned fund balance. If it's in there and there's some catastrophe in town, how does the money get appropriated from the unassigned fund balance? Do the voters vote? Does the select board? Just the
Select board is.
So, right? No?
No?
That's get approval. Let's get approval from DRA, sometimes Superior Court in order to do it. In the past, we had 1 year, in the last 15 years that I know of, where there are unanticipated expenses of almost $450,000. So we use tax anticipation notes in order to cover it temporarily, which worked. And we did get approval to go into the unassigned fund balance and draw it down for those purposes. So there is a way, but you have to go and get approval from the DRA and
So it seems that, the position, and I tend to, I'm sympathetic to that position myself, and so it's really on one hand, we want to get to what the DRA is recommending. And on the other hand, that would be nice, but look, this is a really huge tax increase and we don't want to crater the budget. So I guess, just put it out there to the extent anybody wanted to do so, they could amend these warrant articles to pull money out of the unassigned fund balance, could they not, at the deliberative session?
well, yeah, and I would keep in mind that the DRA has some just strange rules about this retention. First of all, they cover the entire tax appropriation, including the schools, including the county, everything is included into that total of $14 million. Obviously, our budget is not $14 million. Our budget is $6 million. it does make sense, 5% of $6 million is $300,000. I think all the time that I was town administrator, I tried to keep at least 300,000 to 500,000 in the account after we used it for capital reserves. And that's about 5 to 7% of what our budget is. The schools have their own vehicles for dealing with those issues, and the same general types of rules.
They can't,
They can't put into a reserve account,
yeah, they can do that, but they can compensate.
but they changed that to 15% now of their budget, which would be $3 million.
But before, they weren't allowed to keep anything.
Okay, I don't want to argue. I personally would like to make a motion that our budget committee recommend to the selectmen to take part of the unassigned fund balance and apply it against those capital items.
So you,
You want a second?
before, okay,
What?
is that okay? Did you want to speak to that, Dave, before we?
Well, I just have a question,
Yeah.
I think Mike can answer this. My recollection is DRA requires you to have a certain amount.
Nope,
They don't?
nope, that's why I put the quotes in here. It's a guideline and it's a recommendation.
Okay,
Hold on.
that you keep up 10%?
Said because I
No.
used to be a.
Fine.
Hold on, hold on.
All right.
Are you done, Dave?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Ellie?
Thank you.
Yeah, and I looked this stuff up last night, and it's not just the what is it, OFA, whatever it is, it's some government agency that oversees municipality, not a government agency, but an accounting group. And my understanding from what I read is that it's not just DRA, it's the auditors that also care.
That's correct.
And it makes a difference when they do give render their opinion. If they think it's too much, they will give you a qualified opinion. So it's not just DRA.
Stephen, did you want to add something to that?
Ellie's right, it is, both the auditors and DRA are recommending and have been recommending for years that we don't have enough in our unassigned fund.
Okay. Mike, and then you made a motion, I believe it was seconded, so we'll proceed to, I mean, I guess we are discussing it, so yeah.
First comment is a response to Stephen. I worked the auditors for 12, 13 years. And they never recommended that at all. So this must be the new auditors and new ideas. The other is it's GFOA. The quote is in the document I handed out. Government Finance Association, basically, and GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles, which applies to all corporations. So these are just governments. So those are recommendations. I'm saying that on a $6 million budget, they recommend a minimum of 5%. $6 million budget is $300,000. Again, if we have $1 million and we kept $300,000 for our 5%, we still have money. I'm not even suggesting that. I'm suggesting we take $300,000 or $400,000 out of the million, which would leave $600,000, which would be a 10% reserve in place, which I don't think is in any way contrary to the recommendation. It's not mandatory, it is a recommendation. And there are a lot of municipalities that do it exactly the way that's being done here. And I think it's responsible because we show that we have the money in hand before we do it. And then it's taken, and then there's usually a replacement of money. There was not a replacement in 1 year. And we did not fund any of the capital reserve accounts because there was no money available and not insufficient funds. So again, I made the motion.
Dan?
I see nothing in any documentation that we have with our finance manager. I see nothing that shows us that we actually have them. So that's my concern. I understand there's a difference of opinion. But if we're based off the actual numbers that our finance manager is putting forward to us after meeting with the auditors and digging into this and giving us, I have a spreadsheet here of what our unassigned fund balance has averaged for 2017, 2022. I think we all agree Carrie Ann has put together a lot of documentation, she's done a lot of research, she's spoken to a lot of people. There's nothing that I see that shows me that we have $1 million in that fund balance. I do see that in 2017, we had 150,900. 2018, 0. 2019, we were negative 105,522. 2020, we had 0. 2021, we had $47,620. And last year, we had $263,445. That is a copy from our town records that shows us what our unassigned fund balance has been. If someone can show me that we actually have that money, I might get on board. But if we
Dan-
don't have, we need to save up. for the
Dan,
rainy day.
when, as of what date is that? Just so, is it the same date every year, and what date is it?
The audits that are posted on our website and have been in the breakdown of fund balance.
Right, so was
So I-
it year end, is that the,
No, the audits are done in spring and they take into account what all you moved into capital reserves, what all you moved into the encumbrance line. So it's not just December 31st, we look at it, it's the audit comes in after we close out the year and calculates how much money you actually had at year end.
right, that's what I'm saying, that's how much money we had at year end. Right, that's the date, it's a physical 12/31, this is how much you had in your under, whatever it is.
Unassigned
balance.
fund balance.
Yeah,
Right,
the-
that was my understanding of it. This is their numbers at the end of the year that we then get back with everything.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I get it in that part in my head before I do anything else.
So I'm gonna move this pretty soon, but did you have one more thing
Yeah.
to say, Mike? Keep it,
So I did send this over to Carrie Ann this morning, and at that point, I thought it was $800,000 to $900,000. Okay. I did not put the overlay, so after I sent that to you this morning, I looked at, the overlay limit. That overlay was $245,000. And her response was, I think we should be close to that for fund balance at the end of the year, so I'm quoting what she sent back to me. She has the same numbers I got, 587,465. So all I'm saying is I believe that somewhere that at the very least, at the close of our fiscal year, which is what the calculation requires, that the number that we have is going to be somewhere between 800,000 and $1.2 million. And I believe it's going to be closer to the $1 million because the overlay is not posted in there. It's not in her revenue statements, but it is money that was collected under the formula used for the tax rate, so it's in our account.
so why would that be
Okay.
so different from the history?
Because the history depends on when you look at the number, and I've gone through this, I think, 4 or 5 times at this point. So, there is an audit report that's prepared by the auditors, and it's a 25-30 page document that has all changes that occurred after the fiscal year, including, as was pointed out, it includes the transfers into the capital reserves. That's done midway through the year. During the year, that fund gets replenished. It gets replenished by any unanticipated revenues, by any under expenditures of the budget. And as I pointed out to Dan, we went through it page by page about a month and a half ago. I showed him all the records where that occurs. So the first place it occurs is in the MS5. That's prepared by the accounting firm. They say that it's X number of dollars as of December 31st. It's filed with the state. There isn't one yet for this year because we just closed the year. But last year's did have a lot larger number than Dan is quoting. That's what our accounting firm said was available in the unassigned fund balance. That was as of December 31st, comes out as a DRA form that's filed with the state somewhere around May, June. That's the first place. The second place is in October. In October, the tax rate is set. So and Carrie Ann, quite thankfully, I'm very pleased and happy we got it. Sent us an email, and her email says this is what and you sent it out again, I think today as a matter of fact. And then the tax rate, I'm gonna quote from, I'm not online, so I can't do it that way. But on page 4 of the tax rate, this is a DRA document, it's entitled 2023 Fund Balance Retention Guidelines, right? Current amount retained, 4%. 4% of the total appropriation, including the school appropriation, the state appropriation, the county appropriation, 4%. Realistically, it's more like 8 or 9%. The amount that's stated in this form, I'm looking at it right here, Dan, come on up and look at it, It says $587,465, same number that Carrie had put in her email. That's what was stated as being in our unassigned fund balance as of November. Since then, we've closed the year. You underspent money by about $200,000, 300,000, I don't remember the exact number. And you had additional revenue of about another $300,000. That did not include the overlay. The overlay is in here. The overlay is found on page page 2, I think it is. And it says actual overlay used is $245,416. That overlay is a decision made by the Board of Selectmen or their agents to say, this is what we need for compensating revenue because of other issues like abatements or things like that. And they put in $245,416. That is not posted in what's over in what Carrie Ann has. But it did go into the general fund. It's not posted because it's not in an account, it just goes into the general fund. So that's what I'm relying on, Dan. I'm relying on the state documents for the DRA for the rates. I'm relying on the MS5, which is where the accounting firm says what the unassigned fund balance is. And I think it's fair to say that Carrie Ann is working with the same numbers.
All right, so I have a couple of quick questions. I just need some help here. The total ask in 2024 is 6,050,000 something. And the total ask in 23 was 5,222,531, which is a 15% increase in the total ask, right? That translates, according to what Mike is saying, into a 34% increase in the tax rate. That's accurate? That's the way that works? Mike?
Yes, and let me explain that.
Yeah, thank you, please.
It's 15% is what the budget went up,
Mhm.
okay? So if all the non-tax revenue went up 15%, that's good. It's an accurate number. So if the total budget goes up 15%. And all the non-tax revenue goes up 15%. Then the tax revenue would go up 15%. That's not what's happening here.
That's right.
The total went up 15% on spending. It's pretty static. You can look from year to year. It's pretty static on what the non-tax revenue is. So think about it. Half of the budget's coming from non-tax revenue, half is coming from taxes. If you're not getting any new revenue out of the non-tax revenue, it's gonna be double for what you're raising on taxes.
Right, thank you. That was one of the reasons why I was a bit concerned that we were being as conservative as we were when we were putting in our revenue numbers for one. Just, that was one of my concerns because I know that I can see the impact of it financially. Right, so if there's, if we can think about,
And off the top of my head, if you did this, if you took 400,000 out of the unassigned fund balance and plugged it in here. On behalf of the taxpayers, let me thank you immensely, because instead of a 34% increase, you would have about a 23%.
Yes.
I had to address that when I emailed the budget committee this morning.
Yeah,
and
I saw
told
that.
you By the time we actually set the tax rate,
Right.
we have 3/4 of actual and only 1/4 estimated. And then at that time, the DRA knows what our meals agreement is gonna be.
Right.
So it'll be easier to get an accurate number when we're setting the tax rates.
right, so our hope is that, that the non-tax revenue is gonna rise above where it stands now in our projection. Is that,
But it's not gonna raise $400,000. It's been 2 million for the last 5 years.
I'm just asking the question,
Right.
Okay,
The $400,000 would be 8% decrease.
Yeah, it's more like a 10% increase, decrease.
So to summarize, we have, a disagreement, but let's say worst case is that the revenues come in as they are and we have 500 some odd thousand in the unassigned fund balance. Think that's real? Everybody agrees that that number itself is real?
Yeah.
Between the two? So if we did, like you said, and we encourage the select board to amend articles and they did so, and they took $400 out, then perhaps the worst case would be our unassigned fund balance is down to $100,000. I'm just saying worst case. I know you have an argument for why it wouldn't be the case. Yeah,
So,
Carrie.
much
Carry on.
easier way to use unassigned fund balance, and you just, when you have an amount, you just buy down the tax rate. Instead of saying we're putting fund balance into all these things, you fill out your form and say, we're gonna use $500,000 of our fund balance to put it towards taxes. Instead of like picking and choosing warrant articles and where the money goes where. So there's a much easier and more understandable process for the taxpayers to use fund balance. And then you can actually see it against the operating budget.
And who has the authority for that? Is that the select board or who?
Is the select board controls fund balance.
Okay, so they, I guess, I think some of the concern is that as the warrant article is written, you see all these increases and that one way to get them to pass, if people are concerned about that, might be to say, well, we're gonna take another, see what I'm saying? It's more of a political.
And even when you're on the DRA portal and you're setting the tax rate, it blatantly asks you like, how much of your fund balance are you gonna use to buy down the tax rate? Instead of going through the whole warrant article process, moving it into capital reserves. It's just a more clean way and it's easier to understand. So once we know what's actually there, we can look at just buying down the tax rate. So then we ask to appropriate what we need to run the operating budget, and then we buy down the tax rate that way.
Karen?
Well, I think that for someone who's in finance, that seems like a simpler way to do it. But a member of the public, I think it makes, can see where my tax money is really going into this fund to support the fire engine or whatever. And that's my comment on that, that, yeah, that an accountant's brain goes that way and there's nothing wrong with that. But the public's brain, and also if they see that all of this is going in from the tax, I have a feeling that a lot of these warrant articles aren't gonna pass. And-
Well, I think
and-
that's the
and-
concern.
And historically, having said, as a citizen of this town, not being terribly financially savvy, to see that the unappropriated fund balance is going to go into this capital reserve fund made me say, oh, that's a good idea, and that money's there, and it's not as if we're, the money that's going, I've said this before, into a capital reserve fund is gone, it's just saved in a different place. Even though it's specified how it has to be spent, that's the best.
I know you want to
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, Mark's got a comment on
Yes,
this.
we're getting ready to vote, want to make a motion that we can do a roll call vote on this.
On the
Motion.
motion that's on the
Yeah.
table?
No, that's fine.
You wanna move the question?
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna move the question. We've had enough discussion about it. You made the motion, Karen seconded, and that's,
rescind the motion because I want to at least explain one more thing.
keep it brief.
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
So I think it's safe to go with 800,000 because we have in hand the 245 that went in November. That's one.
That's an assumption.
No, I know it.
Well,
It's stated
let's,
right
for,
there.
for those of us who aren't as sure as you, Mike, we're gonna use that as the assumption.
It is on a DRA form that was signed by the Board of Selectmen and
Okay.
by the Commissioners. Okay, and then the second is, I recently got my head handed to me because I failed to be transparent. For 12 years, we used a fully transparent process where we let the voters decide how to use that unassigned fund balance. It is correct to say that the selectmen all by their lonesome can go out and use it. They don't have to get voter approval. This town over the past 20 years has always looked at having more accountability to the taxpayers. And I'm a firm advocate that you really ought to continue the practice of letting the taxpayers make the decision. So in conclusion, and I will shut up and I'll reinstate the motion.
No, okay.
is
You've withdrawn your other motion.
Yep, well, I just really believe that there is at least 800,000, and I think the recommending taking either 300,000 or 400,000 and leave the reserves. The numbers I was challenged that we don't have any real numbers. You got them. I got them from Gary in. They're public records. They're all over the place. So the real numbers are $800,000. So that's why I made the motion.
So what, would you please restate the motion? I didn't withdraw your other one.
Recommend that the selectmen take $400,000 out of the unassigned fund balance to be applied to the capital warrant items.
Okay.
Which are articles X through Y, I don't know what they.
Is there a second?
Is there a second on that?
No second.
John seconding? All right.
Karen, you
Or Karen,
right there.
Okay.
Karen, we'll let Karen. Karen seconded the original one. So. We've had a lot of discussion on this, so I'm just gonna move on the question. And you want to take it a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay. All right, John,
Yes.
Ellie, oh, she's not here. Stephen,
Abstain.
Mark,
Yes.
Sal,
Yes.
Mike Reese,
Yes.
Mike Sampson,
Yes,
Karen,
Yes,
and I'm a yes. The ayes have it,
Make it 701.
701, yep. And of course, it's not.
No, Ellie is not here. It's 6:01. Ellie,
Let me, can I clarify?
yeah, Ellie's not here.
To take forward,
Oh, no, but
recommend,
Mark is here now, so it's.
let's say the committee is recommending select board to take 400,000 to be applied. You want to take 400,000 from,
unassigned fund balance.
thank you.
I think Karen, you're right, and I think, some of those warrant articles, maybe
Or
have
capital
expenditures get voted down. I also think a $6 million budget is gonna go to a default, personally.
Which is another reason for doing it, because that means you can
Exactly.
still go ahead and do some of the other.
No,
ones.
exactly, that's what I'm getting at.
Mr. McAllister,
As I see it sitting in the public now, this is a transparent way for the voters to see the money being applied. And I'm not saying that isn't a good idea to apply it to the tax rate to buy it down. It is a good idea, but this way the voters can see it. If you wait until the fall, they can't see it.
Let's say you have to pay the first bill, we got it.
Right, but I think this is a good idea, I really do.
I do, because I share Mike's concerns. I mean, some of these, putting just your voter hat on, you're like, oh, wow, they want to raise all this money from taxes this year, really? I don't think we really need that.
No, and-
Not even knowing what we've been
Yeah,
discussing
And
before.
I also want to,
But
yeah, and I also want to.
help any.
Yeah, and Carrie Ann is right, and over time, we really need to make sure that we do have, an appropriate. Undisclosed, or not, whatever that, the balance is, let's say, undesignated fund balance, we do. Need to have an eye on that, and we need to figure out a way to work that into our plans as we move forward as a town.
this is not the year to do it.
I,
That's the problem.
I
right?
think that's what we're
where we're at.
recommending, is it not, Karen?
Yeah.
Okay,
I would just add that I agree this isn't a year. If there is money available that we can help with the tax rate, I'm all about it. I mean, we've sat hours just like everybody in this room had. We've had it down, it comes back up, down.
Mhm.
You hear me last night trying to whittle off another $100,000. But one thing I just noticed in some statements is that is a great way for the board to be able to, an appropriate way for them to spend that money and this and that. I think it's more along the lines of this particular board. We're not talking about spending, we're talking about savings. And we're talking about setting us up for a year or two down the road from now, so we don't continuously stay in this spot. That's really where we're at.
yeah, we understand that you guys are in a tough spot, it's a tough,
I
it's a
know
tough
so.
fix.
But I also just, and then I'm done. There is a policy that was adopted by the town, if any of you wanted to see it, that actually lays out the guidelines of the fund balance policy. That the town's policy that states how much we're gonna try to save and how we're gonna do it. And that's part of my feelings on this as well. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
So that,
Motion,
is it,
I can answer later.
okay, so I'll entertain a motion to recess the hearing.
right. So moved.
And I'll second it. All those in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed? All right.
Recess to a time certain.
Uh,
Whatever that means.
Yeah, I guess so.
To
To the deliberative session. Yeah. We can have a brief meeting afterward to close it up. Is that how we've done in the past?
Nice job. Yeah, good work, Phil. Good job.